former car salesman who claims he owns the moon has made $11 million by selling pieces of lunar landscape, and buyers include Tom Cruise, Tom Hanks and George Lucas. Dennis Hope, 66, says he exploited a loophole in the 1967 UN Outer Space Treaty to claim ownership of the lunar landscape. He then divided it into plots and sold them in his local bar and over the internet via his company, Lunar Embassy, for $20, £12 an acre, or $25, £15, including mineral rights. Hollywood actors Tom Cruise, Tom Hanks, and Clint Eastwood, and Star Wars creator George Lucas are said to be among his 6 million customers. Presidents Reagan, Carter and Bush Jr. have also had plots bought for them, while companies such as Hilton and Marriott have also invested. Hope has even set up his own state, the Galactic Government, in 2004, which has a ratified constitution, a Congress, a unit of currency and even a patent office. Each owner gets a gold-embossed certificate and an entitlement to vote in any future elections. Mr. Hope, a former used car salesman, researched the law on land grabs on Earth before writing to the United Nations to lay claim to the moon. He did not receive a reply refusing his request, and therefore considers himself to have a legal right to the moon and all its minerals. He also claimed ownership of most of the other planets in the solar system, and their moons, at the same time. He said, "I couldn't help thinking that there was a lot of unclaimed property up there. I was intrigued enough to look up the treaty, and sure enough, Article 2 states, no nation by appropriation shall have sovereignty or control over any satellite bodies. I found a lot of countries accepted that land could be claimed, so I just applied what I learned. People have said just because the UN never responded doesn't mean you own it. Well, I did my due diligence, they should have done theirs." Mr. Hope, from San Francisco, came up with the idea of laying claim to the moon while on a cross-country drive in the late 1970s. He started selling the plots in his local pub before going online as the internet grew. He said, "I'd sit in bars, with a batch of deeds in my coat. I'd get talking to someone and they asked what I did, I'd say, I sell the moon. It was a great conversation starter. I made a lot of sales that way." Mr. Hope now has plans to build a giant pyramid on the moon, with room for thousands of visitors. He said it is unlikely anybody will live there permanently because it could lead to medical complications. But he does believe people will have extended vacations of up to 3 months at a time to get the best views in the solar system. A leisure company even plans to open an indoor golf course. Dennis's biggest sale so far is 2.6 million acres to one person. But he says he turned down a massive offer, worth hundreds of millions of dollars, because the company wanted to buy the polar regions. Mr. Hope said, "That's where the frozen water is and they're not for sale. Any company that owned it would have a monopoly on the moon's water supply and would exploit it." The youngest landowner on the moon was a day old and the oldest 97. Unsurprisingly, Mr. Hope's business venture has landed him in court on numerous occasions. He said, "I've been taken to court in Germany and Sweden for fraud, but both cases were thrown out of court because of lack of jurisdiction. No court wants to tackle the issue yet, but I'm sure there'll be cases in the future." Others have sent him abusive letters and emails, and at least 4 bomb threats have been made against the business. He added, "They call me a con man and a charlatan and that no one can own the moon for himself. I just turn them over to the FBI and let them deal with them." Mr. Hope claims he exploited a hole in the 1967 UN Outer Space Treaty in order to claim ownership of the moon, most of the planets in the solar system, and their moons as well. He says the treaty only specifies that countries may not lay claims to ownership, but says nothing about individuals. So is owning an acre of the moon legal? Tanya Masson-Zwan, deputy director of the International Institute of Space Law, previously told the National Geographic that all UN treaties apply to both countries and their citizens, which would disqualify Mr. Hope's claims. She added, "What Lunar Embassy is doing does not give people buying pieces of paper the right to ownership of the moon." However, Henry Hertzfeld, a space analyst at George Washington University's Space Policy Institute, explained to CNN in 2008 that the treaty has little legal power because it is too difficult to enforce. "These treaties don't really have any teeth to them," he said. "They are agreements on principle. In fact, several governments, including that of Germany and Sweden, have tried to prosecute Mr. Hope for fraud, but he says the cases have fallen flat over a lack of jurisdiction." I hope you love this video. If yes, follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Thank you.